Hi. Today I am filming a small business Q&A slash small business essentials, tips, things that I think you need to know if you are going to start a small business or if you already have one and may feel a little lost, etc. I am basically just going to go down the line from beginning to current on how I think you should start a small business, or if you already started one but maybe didn't do it the right way, things that you should go back and make sure you do. And then after I do my little steps, I will talk about some Q&A that I got on my social media. So I have some real questions from you guys that I'm going to answer that are more specific. I share more tips on my social media accounts. It's not like a huge part of what I do every day, but I certainly have some valuable information on my account. Small business playlist on my TikTok. I have a ton of videos on the process and I answer some very, very specific questions on there. I do have to do a small disclaimer. Throughout this video, I just want to say that this is my experience and what I did. If I call out specific brands that I used or companies that I've worked with, it's because that's what I know and that's what I can recommend to you. There are many different ways to go about things, but this is what I did slash what I would do. Just keep that in mind. If I say something that you haven't done or didn't do or you did differently, that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. It's just my experience. Okay, number one, if you haven't already, or if you are starting a small business, you need to form that business legally. And this sounds so intimidating, but it's not, I promise. You could hire a small business attorney and get their opinion and do that. I didn't do that. All I did was go to LegalZoom. This isn't sponsored. I've worked with them before, but that's after I used them in 2020. I went to LegalZoom and I started an LLC. This is a limited liability corporation. Or you could start a corporation like an S Corp or a C Corp. I'm not a lawyer. I don't really want to talk specifics on these, but basically what it essentially does broadly is it separates you from your business assets. So if something were to happen like bankruptcy or you got sued, your business isn't you, it's separate. So I would do that. And with that really comes setting up your bank account as well. So when I used LegalZoom to set up my LLC, I filled out certain applications I needed, like a tax ID number application. They sort that all for you and send it in, and then you receive everything you need. So I had various documents that I needed to start a business bank account. I just went to my local bank that I already had my checking account in and gave them the forms they need. It's gonna depend on you. I think I needed like a certificate of organization, my actual LLC, and then my tax ID number, and then maybe one other piece of like state license documentation. But needless to say, I just paid for everything from LegalZoom when forming my business to make sure I didn't miss out on any formal pieces of documentation that I needed. Like one of those was being that I needed to register my business in my state, and I did that through LegalZoom at the same time I started my LLC. That's why I recommend it. There are probably ways to do it cheaper if you are informed and know how to do it on your own. There's ways to get an LLC, just literally filling out the documentation and doing it. But to me, it's overwhelming and I feel like I would forget something. So I just paid, I think it was around $300 to $400, but that's one time. And then every year there's like smaller costs to like renew things if you wish. I hope this helps. That's the route I went in, but there's many other routes. When you start an LLC, for example, you don't necessarily have to pick your business name right away because you can get a DBA, which is a doing business as. So for example, my LLC is Skylar Grace Company LLC, but my DBA is Skylar Grace Company. So that way I don't have to go by Skylar Grace Company LLC everywhere. And then I also have another DBA under Skylar Grace Company LLC called Skylar Cunningham Videography, which is my videography business. I would make sure your LLC has like a good solid name, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like the name of your photography business or the name of your e-commerce store. You can kind of play around with it. A lot of people make their LLCs just their name and then they branch off from there. But with that being said, after you figure out what you want your business to be called, you need to be searching for trademarks, website domains, and social media accounts to make sure that your name isn't taken yet. To check trademarks, you can go to USPTO. It's the US Patent trademark office or something. But basically you can just go to uspto.gov and you can search trademarks. So you can literally just search Skylar Grace Co and you can see my trademark on there. I'm gonna dip into trademarks after this. But yeah, just make sure that the name you want isn't trademarked. If your business is your name, it's less likely, but just check. 2, make sure your website domain isn't taken. You don't want to make your business and then skylargraceco.com's taken. That would stink. And then 3, same with social media accounts. Yeah, just make sure that the social media handle you want isn't taken either. A little aside with trademarks, in my opinion, I do not think that they are 100% necessary, especially when you're first starting out. It's not easy to get a trademark unless you are starting like I hate to think of small businesses as never gonna be big businesses, but unless you are nervous about someone infringing on your things, I wouldn't freak out about it right away. I would look into it and keep in mind that down the line you could register a trademark, but I would not let that hold you back from starting something unless you're like Kylie Jenner or something. I'm not a lawyer, but that's kind of the consensus I've grasped throughout the years, and I listened to a podcast where a lawyer was kind of saying that. So they're important, but don't let them like scare you or think that you have to like have a solidified trademark before you start something, because that's not the case. Number 2, after you start your business legally, you have an LLC, you have a bank account, you're ready to roll, or if you've already started one, go back and do those things. Next, this can apply to you if you are rebranding or if you're starting. Hire a graphic designer to make your logo and your branding for you, please. Unless you are someone who has experience doing this, which is the case for a lot of people starting apparel brands, for example. I wouldn't recommend just buying a logo kit off of Etsy. I would recommend hiring a real graphic designer to give your whole branding a look and talk about what your values are and what your brand represents and what you want your brand to come across as. You don't just want to slap a logo on everything that doesn't really have anything to do with you and your brand. That being said, hiring someone to do your entire branding is not cheap, so I understand if you are a small business owner, this might not be entirely possible. Maybe reach out to a college student or reach out to someone who's starting freelance graphic design work and see what they can give you for cost. Just kind of work with someone who's starting but has the skills to give you something more than what you're able to do. I think it's very important to do this. Don't overlook it. Number 3, after this is where it gets tricky because you're done. You started your business, but now what? You know? Let's talk about marketing a little bit. There are so many forms of marketing. Social media, there's email, there's SMS, there is word of mouth, there's print, there's so many things. What I think right now is most important is social media marketing, and that won't come as a surprise to you. I think organic, which means unpaid advertising, is the best because you can create the content yourself using your iPhone. You can send products to some people you know that make great content. You can do a trade for product or service for visual like photos and videos, and then post those on TikTok, Instagram. That's a given. Don't sleep on social media. Don't sleep on Facebook. Start those things and don't slack on them. Next, let's talk about email and SMS really quick. I use Privy. I can type it out. I'm not tied to it or anything. That's just what I use right now. I know Klaviyo is a really popular one. Those are some resources if you want to try. Emails work really great, but in order to build an email list, you have to have some sort of pop-up on your website so that people can sign up. You can also do SMS, which is text messages. I think those both work really great. So I recommend jumping on these when you're first starting your website. Get email and text message submissions set up. Let's jump back. I'll say number 4 will be about websites. I'm just gonna tell you what I use and what I think about websites because I know this is very overwhelming. If you're starting a small business, the huge part of that is a website. I have an e-commerce business and I also have a videography service business for weddings. So these are two very different things. So I'm going to explain kind of the route I would go in if you have a service, like if you have a yoga studio, photographer, things like that, or if you sell products for dogs, t-shirts, things like that. So on one side we have services. In my opinion, I think Wix and Squarespace are great websites for services. These are great for portfolios. If you are a graphic designer that's freelancing, I think these are what you need. If you're an e-commerce site, hands down, 100% you need to go with Shopify, in my opinion. I started out with Wix, but I converted to Shopify probably about a little over a year ago because I quickly realized that all of the like big dogs are on Shopify. Like that's just what people use. The place I worked at for my 9 to 5, their whole website's Shopify. The stores I freelance for, their shops are Shopify. Basically with Shopify, it's such like the main site that people use that it integrates with so many things. So when you're looking for like integrations with Faire, for example, Faire is like a wholesale website. They integrate well with Shopify. Privy, Klaviyo, they integrate well with Shopify. You will run into some different things that you want to use that don't integrate with Wix and Squarespace. And Shopify, if you're looking down the road, it's just what people use. Like if you want to connect a service, like if you want to hire someone to fix your website, like to design your website, or if you want to hire someone to come in and integrate Shopify with Facebook ads, like Shopify is just the one, you know? I don't know if that makes sense. Basically, if you're selling something online, just use Shopify right away. Just do it. On the other hand, Shopify, if you're not selling anything online, there's no need to pay for Shopify. If you just need a portfolio with a domain name and you don't need to pay to have the service of collecting payments like through an e-commerce sense, go with Squarespace or Wix. They have some great templates for portfolios and I think those are way easier options. That is kind of like my how to start a business and tips I have. I went over forming your business, and then I went over making sure you have good design, and then I went over some marketing and then websites. There are so many things I could cover, but I'm just gonna leave it there for now so I can answer the FAQ that I have here on my paper, and these might answer some more questions you have. But that's kind of my 2 cents on how to start a business. If you have any more questions about kind of the process after it's started, let me know. But the topic is so broad that it's hard to think without rambling. So that girl, the pod on Instagram, asked, how did you start from the very beginning? I think this question will be very handy for you if you are starting an apparel business. This is exactly how I started, and it'll help you decide on how to actually make apparel and what you should do. I started in April 2020. I started by making stickers. I printed the stickers out on sticker paper on my printer, and then I used a Cricut machine, cut them out. I sold these on Etsy for a while, and then I decided I want my own website because Etsy isn't super customizable. So I want my own website so it can look exactly how I want. Around that same time, I started making t-shirts too, because t-shirts, they're a little more profitable. You know, you can only sell stickers for a certain amount of money before they become ridiculous. You know, you can't sell a sticker for $10. I started going into t-shirts. So to start from that, I ordered my blank apparel off of jiffyshirts.com, and I love them, and I've worked with them before, but that's who I started out with before I worked with them, jiffyshirts.com. You can buy wholesale or individual pieces of clothing, which is great, and they have an amazing return policy. I'll talk about that in a second, why that is so great. I started by using a material called HTV, which is called heat transfer vinyl. I would use my Cricut machine and I would cut out my designs with the machine onto the vinyl, and then I would use a heat press and then press the heat transfer vinyl onto the fabric. And I would hand make everything just like that, and I used a website called Ship Pirate to type in addresses and print out the labels and send them off. Quickly, this got very tedious. If you're getting a decent amount of orders every day. It's exhausting. It really is. My family had to help me peel the vinyl, had to help me pack orders. I went viral in June 2020 and I came to Colorado to visit Jared. Because of the timing, we had to make hundreds of t-shirts. So I ordered Jiffy shirts here and I went to Michael's and I got the vinyl, and I bought another Cricut out here and we had to make a whole bunch of t-shirts. After that, I was kind of like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So my dad knew a guy who had a screen printing business. There are so many of them. Like, he was just the guy I used because my dad knew him, but anywhere that there's a school, basically, there will be a screen printing business. Because, you know, schools need like t-shirts made and things. So this is where I transferred from vinyl to screen printing. I would just send them my design and they would tell me their minimum order, and then I would order when I needed and then they would ship to me. So from there, I got everything screen printed and I had Shopify running, so that was kind of the process then. Here is where an in-between solution kind of popped up that I would like to recommend to you guys. A brand called Transfer Express reached out to me because they wanted to collaborate with me. This is where I was getting my logos printed that I could iron on the back of my neck, back of the neck of the apparel. Basically, Transfer Express sells screen printed transfers. So it's kind of in between vinyl and screen printing because it comes on a sheet and it's your design, but it infuses into the apparel like ink, not like a sticker. Vinyl, you can't really dry it, it can peel, but the screen printed transfers fuse. So this is where I started heat pressing some of my shirts instead of ordering them from a screen printer. And the reason why is because it's cost effective. It's not fast. It takes some time, takes some precision, takes more care. It's better than vinyl, but it's not just ordering it from a screen printer and getting it sent to you. But here is why I did that. Like I said, I ordered my apparel from Jiffy Shirts, and then I could just make my items to order. So if someone ordered a large spooky season t-shirt, I could just take my design, put it on the t-shirt, press it, make it, done. And if October's over and if everyone stopped buying the spooky season t-shirts, I don't have 100 of them sitting on my shelves because I would just make them as orders came in. And then whatever t-shirts I had left over, I just could ship back to Jiffy Shirts because they're return policy. If you're starting an apparel business, that's what I recommend. I recommend getting blank apparel online and ordering screen printed transfers and a heat press and making things that way. That way you're not losing money and you're not gonna have inventory sitting on your shelves. So I would skip the vinyl, skip the Cricut. It's really not that cost effective, not that great quality. If you're making something like crafty for a friend, that's fine, but if you're selling things as a business, I would recommend screen print transfers. Now, once you grow, totally work with a screen printer and an embroiderer. There's plenty out there, but I know it can get expensive and they have minimum order quantities. The same person asked, how did I save up finances? And I hope my story that I just told kind of explains to you how I was able to do things. So really all I paid for at first was my Cricut machine. It was 2020, so I was already in college. Like, I had jobs, I had a videography business, and I was working at my school's coffee shop, so I wasn't broke. Obviously, if you're like 14 trying to do this, might be a little harder. It really wasn't that expensive. I just bought a couple things I needed from the craft store, and I started doing that, and I did made to order, so the order money paid for the products as it went. I'd never bought anything super in bulk until I had money saved up from past orders when I went viral. Someone asked about my initial inventory. This kind of plays into what I was just saying, but if you're at the point where you're ready to order a bigger order from a screen printer, I would recommend just going with the minimum unless you've been like selling out like crazy. Minimums are usually around 30 something. In my opinion, I would get more medium, large, XL than small 2X, 3X, 4X. I would say that larges for me sell the most. Make sure you're being size inclusive, make sure you still offer smalls, and make sure you still offer 2X, 3X, and 4X. I think that's very important as a brand, and even where you're getting t-shirts, if they even sell XS or XXS or 5X or 6X. If you're able to do it, do it. I think that's very important. Obviously, you want to be careful with your quantities. Like, I used to order way too many smalls and they just don't sell in the type of apparel I sell. People don't want their crew necks to be tight on them, same with their t-shirts. So the smaller sizes are harder to sell, so be careful. Don't order 40 smalls unless your business is huge, and then you wouldn't be needing to watch this video. Ashley Galvin 18 asked, how do I get out of a slump? This is a great question. So honestly, to get out of a slump, recording yourself helps a lot. If you're like trying to vlog what you're doing, even if this isn't something you do normally, recording yourself does motivate you. You should try it. 2, definitely get ready, shower, do your makeup, put on clothes. Even if you aren't going anywhere, get ready. Do what I did today. I went to a coffee shop and I worked instead of sitting at home, if you're able to do that. If not, you could just go outside or try going to your kitchen table instead of your bedroom. Just change your environment. And lastly, just romanticize the work you're doing. Even if it seems like what you're doing is so small and silly, just romanticize it. Like, you can be a business owner if you want to be. So start calling yourself a business owner. You know, like, I'm a business owner. I'm gonna go make a fun drink and sit down and open my computer and work. Like, I don't know. I think it can be really fun to like romanticize what you're doing. Think of yourself as a little girl watching what you're doing, and it helps. The next question is, how do I find customers? Honestly, if you're first starting out, do not sleep on Facebook. Start with the people you know. Start with your friends. Start with your parents, your parents' friends, your friends' parents. I would start there. That is the best way to kind of grow, because you already know these people. So they would be happy to support you, I'm sure. Some people might think you're silly, but who cares? They aren't doing it. Also, side note, no one that makes fun of you is doing better than you. Just saying. If someone is making fun of you or talking about you, it's because they aren't fulfilled or they're jealous. That's just how it is. If someone is doing better than you, they wouldn't ever laugh at you. So that's just something you kind of have to overcome when sharing your ventures to family and friends and people of your community. But it's worth it, and you'll be surprised at like who really shows up and is like your top customer. So just do it and start there. Definitely branch out on social media, your website, start sending emails once people sign up, things like that. My last question is from Honey Breezy from TikTok, and she said, ideas for a beginner. I want to make shirts, but I feel lost in all I need in the process. My story on that helps answer this question a lot, but I will just say a piece of advice is to just start. Obviously, you're watching this video already, so that's a great start. I think the biggest thing that hinders people from starting a business is starting. It's so intimidating, and it seems like you need all these things before you can even start. But I promise you, I never started this business with intentions of it being a business. You can do things as you go, unless you're trying to build like such a huge, massive company. If you're starting a small business or hobby business, there's really nothing in your way. There really isn't. It takes some time, but just do something right now, today, that will progress you towards your goal. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this could help even one person start their business or help them find some more clarity on their business. If you have any questions, please comment below or go to my Instagram or TikTok. I have a lot more content on those pages. Best of luck to anyone who is pursuing business owning. It is a great time, and even if it isn't your full-time job, it's still very fulfilling and it teaches you a lot. So I highly recommend it, and I'm happy for everyone who is started on their journey. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. I love chatting with you in the comments. So even if you don't subscribe or like, leave a comment, because that's my favorite. Alrighty, bye guys.